let's start the show.
For Thursday, January 19th, 2017, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to This Is Only a Test. Sans Norman Chan, who is in Disney World right now, inevitably in a fast pass line. That's all I know about Disney World.
Do you think he got the celebrity pass so that he goes to the front of every line?
Oh, with the escort?
There's a celebrity pass?
Yeah, if you're a celebrity, they have a special escort that kind of guides you around the park and gets you ahead of the line and everything like that.
By necessity, because Disney doesn't want celebrities in line. They don't want people who are recognizable attracting too many people over to cause more crowd.
I think his name indicates that Norm is a normie, so I don't think he's going to get that treatment. Welcome in this week. This week I'm joined by our regular co-host, Jeremy Williams. How are you doing, sir?
I'm well, sir. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Sir, very formal this week, sir. And joined in again, second time on the podcast, though it's been more than a year. Welcome back, Steve Lin.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it only the second time?
It is only the second
wow.
time. Yeah.
All right.
I did my research for this podcast.
Wow, you watched every previous podcast.
Yeah, I had to go through all 383 episodes to figure out Steve has only been on once. He's been referenced more than one time, though.
Norm had nothing to do with the audio video this week, so anything that's wrong is on Kishore.
Jeremy completely.
All right, fine. I'll take the heat.
Well, we should get to know Steve a little bit because Steve's been a friend of Tested before Tested was tested, right?
Sure.
Yeah, down Whiskey Media days.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to do some questions to get you to know you better.
Sure. My background is, grew up in Ohio, moved out to the Bay Area during the .com boom, the first one, and primarily been in technology, done a lot of games. I was at Google and YouTube. And GREE. Now I'm running with Frank Cifaldi, the Video Game History Foundation.
Video Game History Foundation.
What is that?
Video Game History Foundation is a nonprofit. We're an actual 501c3 dedicated to preserving games and the culture that it spawned. So we're doing things like preserving artifacts, getting oral histories, and getting those into museums. So we don't want to run a museum ourselves. We're more of kind of a facilitator and making sure that when something comes up, either for auction or, someone wants to donate, we make sure it goes into the right place. So we have partnerships with people like the Museum of Play, Library of Congress, Smithsonian, things like
Small places.
Yeah, real,
Small museums.
Right, it's like the Pez Museum in Burlingame. It's,
I've just heard about that there's a Pez museum like 20 minutes from my house.
Yes,
I literally just heard about that. I didn't even know about it.
Is it not excellent?
It's small, but it's really cool. It's Pez collecting is such a weird rabbit hole because of all the prototypes and everything that came out. So it's definitely a worth a visit.
So as far as the video game stuff you're interested in, is there a particular era that you focus on?
Well, right now there sort of is no there's no end to what we could focus on, but
Sure.
we're looking at early 80s to kind of mid 90s, primarily because most of the people who worked on that stuff are still alive. So we're trying to interview a lot of those people, collect things before they disappear completely, and then we can move on to what's happening now or 10 years from ago.
And is it mostly hardware that you're interested in collecting or also software?
Both. Really, our focus right now is paper. A lot of the documentation, design documents, and code.
Oh, so stuff that never was public. It wouldn't be nostalgia for people. This would be like deep dive stuff for people interested in the actual.
Right. Yeah. So most of the stuff that was
schematics.
released to the public, we have in various collections because so many people are into video game collecting. This is kind of going that one level deeper to what did it look like inside a company when they were trying to develop the games, like schedules and kind of why games changed. I think what's taken out of a game is just as interesting as what made it to production.
That's wicked. I just watched a video about some lost Harry Williams playfields. So Harry Williams is famously like the guy who started Williams Pinball,
Right.
and designed a lot of pinball machines in the mid 20th century, and so he's a hero to a lot of people. And they just found a lot of his unmade playfield designs just thrown away in a locker somewhere.
Yeah, that happens a lot for us. It's when a company is shutting down and you look inside at a supply closet and like, wait a minute, what are these? And it's early prototypes of a game where it's totally different. And like, why did that happen? And trying to dig through that archive.
All right, game companies, Steve is coming for your supply closet.
Yes, we are. Well, steal from work, as Jason Scott says.
I have 5 questions for Steve for
Okay.
everyone to get to know you a little better.
All right,
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. 8-bit or 64-bit?
8-bit.
You just got back from a big trip to Japan.
I did.
Ramen or sushi?
Ramen.
Ooh, interesting. Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi?
Diet Coke.
Yeah, thank you. Correct. Your pinball game of choice?
Twilight Zone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And then finally, who is your favorite tested team member?
Oh. Former tested Will Smith.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's incorrect.
No, that's-
I'm sorry. Sorry, the correct answer to that question is always Joey Famelli.
Oh, that's right.
Joey is everyone's favorite.
Ripley. That's right.
No, Ripley would also be
Ripley
accepted.
works, yes.
Like I alluded to, you just got back from an epic Japanese adventure. How long were you over there for?
I was there for 6 weeks, so beginning of December to last week. Yeah.
And this isn't your first time to Japan.
No. I worked for a company that was based out of Tokyo, so I used to have to go to Tokyo once a month. I was pretty familiar with the city, and given all the crazy things that had happened here, I decided to just take some time away from the United States for a while and explore.
Like Dave Chappelle.
Yeah. Where he just kind of disappeared. So I decided to visit parts of Japan that I had never been before, and look for things like out-of-the-way game stores and historical sites and things like that.
Where were some of your favorite finds?
Some of my favorite finds were finding obsessive game collector folks in Japan. I found an arcade where he was collecting old Atari vector games from the United States. And
This would have
he was in
strictly
Japan.
been arcade boards. Like,
No, this is the full upright. Like this guy went real deep. He had a dedicated Major Havoc. He had a Quantum, and Black Widow. And so these are all pretty rare. Like he had a full sit-down Star Wars cockpit, and he lives in Japan, which just sounds absurd. So finding people like that, there were people who were collecting arcade boards and schematics, and really going into a level that you really don't see that often in the United States. And it was great to speak with them about what they're doing, even though there's a bit of a language barrier. Our nerdiness kind of powered through all of that.
cool.
Didn't you go to some sort of game competition too? I follow you on Instagram, and there was some photo in this like stadium.
Oh.
It was like thousands of people.
So the stadium was New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 11, which is basically the
This sounds
wrestling-
like a terrible knockoff.
Oh,
like these are all like
It was so much better than anything the WWE is doing now. This is basically the WrestleMania of Japan, and it's held every January 4th. And this year was unbelievable because I had never been in a Japanese wrestling crowd before, and so.
I think that goes for the majority of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people but what was great was just seeing some cultural norms being just enforced. Like there'd be a great move or a spot and be like, oh, like it's like a clapping, like an appreciative
During a wrestling
during
match?
the wrestling match. And then there were people who started to get either drunk or really excited and started just like screaming like a regular wrestling crowd, which you don't see people act that way in Japan. Very often.
How
So
was the actual wrestling?
it was amazing. Like just the athleticism and everything else on display. I realize this is like now wrestling cast, but it was if you haven't seen wrestling in a long time and you want to see really good matches, the matches at Wrestle Kingdom 11, especially the finale, Okada versus Kenny Omega, was probably
Kenny
the
Omega.
Yeah.
That's a good solid
Yeah,
wrestler.
it is so he's the guy from Canada, but it's like from the West, right? Challenging Okada in the East, and so for control over the future of wrestling in Japan. But that match,
I like how the invaders from Canada That's hilarious.
So I'm getting the sense there is still an element of contrived theater to all of this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there is definitely
Jeremy,
theater. Oh.
Jeremy,
Sorry.
wrestling is fake.
Sorry,
Jeremy,
I just want to.
Jeremy,
I don't want to
wrestling is
offend
fake.
anybody.
It's real to me. But yeah, that last match was probably the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any other tidbits from Japan?
The mass transit system is so much better than anywhere in the United States and I would argue parts of Europe. Although I did have the experience of the shoving people into the train car, both during rush hour, but then I actually had that experience on a bullet train because I happened to be traveling during a holiday period. So a lot of people go home for the holidays, and if you don't have a reserved seat, it's basically how many people can they shove into a bullet train car. So I saw the line, and I lined up right at the beginning, but train pulls in the station, there's already a ton of people in there. So we get shoved into a bullet train that we're going to be on for 3 hours to Hiroshima. And it's to the point where I'm standing in there against everybody else, and my phone's ringing or buzzing. I don't have the room to reach into my pocket to pick it up to look at it. So people were just falling asleep on each other. And
What?
Yeah,
Standing
up because they don't even need to stand. They just like the sheer number of people that were all packed in there just held you up. So the woman next to me just kind of like her head hit my shoulder and look over and she's totally asleep. So yeah.
And you did that for 3 hours?
Well, it was about 2 because once we got to one of the bigger cities, they like a lot of people got off, and then we were able to I was actually able to move my arms.
Is that better?
Maybe not.
Once you get to that critical mass point, you just might as well just go for it. Where you can't move at all.
Yeah, I was just wondering like if something like that happened in the United States, everyone would be so uncomfortable, but. Everybody on the train was like, "Yep, this is what we expected, and we're just gonna hang out here together."
Huh.
Yeah, and everything's on time. So if any of the trains were late, like even by like 2 minutes, they had these slips that you could get, so you could bring it to your employer to say, "I'm late because the train was 2 minutes late."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's much better than what we're experiencing here in San Francisco, where our Muni system has a predictive company they've worked with called Nextbus that tells you when the next train is arriving, and they built that 10 years ago using 2G architecture, and then AT&T announced for a long time ago, like years ago, that on January 1st 2017 they'd be shutting down 2G.
Oh, great.
And our Muni system, our public transit system, ignored it, and then they shut down the 2G, and none of the predictive things work
I didn't
anymore.
even realize that. Wow.
So now they have to go through and like fix it, but basically they just ignored it.
Yeah.
So hooray,
Hooray.
U.S.
Great.
mass transit.
Yes.
Jeremy, how are you doing?
I just want to point out, Steve has an excellent Twitter feed where you can follow a lot of the pictures of his trip. If you want to look into that, what's your Twitter handle?
It's Stephen P. Lin. Yeah,
Yeah.
I posted a bunch of the things from my trip on there. So
We'll put a
photos.
couple up on the show notes. Maybe the wrestling match.
yeah, the wrestling match, the smart ball, which was kind of like this antique pachinko, was so much fun. That was great.
Awesome. Jeremy, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I can't wait to talk about Switch. It's so deep in the show notes, though.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What is this Sketchfest note you want to talk about?
I was just going to make a note on Still Untitled this week. Janet Varney, who's the founder of SF Sketchfest, which is a comedy festival here in town, and Adam was in a couple shows, and I went to a couple shows. Have either of you gone to any Sketchfest shows?
I saw the Riff Tracks presentations past 2 years, but they didn't do anything this year. So that's the only thing I ever saw.
Yeah, that's the only thing I've seen as well.
Oh, wow.
I went to Judge John Hodgman, where John Hodgman adjudicates petty cases in front of a crowd, and there's like 2,000 people there almost.
Okay.
It was one of the most enjoyable experiences I ever had. I love that podcast, and I just want to give a shout out to check out Still Entitled and hear the history of that festival as Janet relates it. She's incredible. She's the voice of Cora for those that are inclined to that show, and she's also on You're the Worst and a number of other TV shows like Stand Against Evil. I love that festival. And Adam did a few kind of funny, bizarre things over the course of the festival. So if you live in the area, check it out. Let's roll into some pop culture.
Is this still rolling? I mean, is a Sketchfest still
Yeah,
on?
it goes on for another like 2 weeks or so.
Oh, sweet.
Cool.
And now, let's switch to the pop culture segment.
Not a ton of pop culture news this week, but I'm going to go out there on a limb and say friend of Tested, Andy Weir, author of The Martian, turned into a feature film. He's working on a new project right now with Ridley Scott, a new feature film, but he also got a pilot greenlit at CBS, a drama about NASA pilots or NASA astronauts, like going through training,
Oh, that sounds great.
like a weekly show.
Sign me up.
Oh, yeah. Is this like Right Stuff era or now?
I think it's more current.
Okay.
It's not entirely clear from the description. It didn't indicate that it was like a period piece, so I'm guessing it's more modern. I'm excited about it because I love Andy's writing. Though I have to say, like, what is the drama week to week going through like astronaut training?
Oh, like I hope you don't want it to fall into love interest stuff and unrequited sexual, right?
Or like some sort of procedural where they have to like solve this issue every week.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what that is. So I'm curious.
I'm thinking it's more Top Gun. Like there's a lot of training exercises and they're competing with one another. And I don't know. Do you think it's going to be more office-y documentary style?
Well, listen to the description. Mission Control is the name of the show. Revolves around the next generation of NASA astronauts and scientists who juggle their personal and professional lives during a critical mission with no margin for error. So I'm guessing there's probably going to be some people in space and some people on Earth.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe it's kind of like a Studio 60 type of show, or like West Wing.
Oh, you think it'll be Sorkin-esque? I don't know. I don't know if I could handle that.
Yeah.
That's a lot taxing.
Yes. It'd be difficult, but I'm just trying to think of
That's cool.
People running around, walking, talking hallways.
Dude wrote one book. Look at him now.
Yeah.
He's like 1.5.
What do you mean?
He wrote like a number of short stories too.
Oh, okay.
Before that book came out. Yeah, not so bad. This is what happens when you like show your work inside your book, I guess.
Yeah.
And you detail the math out. People love it. And I've been hooked on one show, which is probably the weirdest show. Usually I'm not a fan of Netflix recommendations because my Netflix is all crowded with like kid shows because I accidentally under my profile let my son watch stuff.
You know you can have kid profiles.
I know, but I made the mistake once and now like it's only cartoons. And I only watch cartoons like 20% of the time, so it's, like, it's not perfect. But I stumbled on this show called The Detectorists. It's about a group of metal detectors in the UK.
Is it a cartoon?
No, it's not a
this is real.
cartoon. It's a fiction, sitcom kind of thing.
Okay.
And it stars, and it was written and directed and stars Mackenzie Crook, who played Gareth in the original UK Office. He was like the Dwight Schrute character.
Oh,
Okay.
And it has Toby Smith as his friend, and it's this really quiet, sullen, like almost dark comedy about their lives as metal detectors.
These are the guys you see on beaches, kind of.
Yeah. They like
carry.
they have headphones and they have like nice little detectors and they're swinging and searching for stuff.
What's the deal? You like this show? You
I
recommending
love it. I
Oh my
love
God.
it. It won a BAFTA, which is the British Emmys,
Yeah.
right? It won for the best sitcom last year. It's excellent, and it's the kind of show that you can't see in the U.S. Like it would never be made because it is sort of quiet and prods along, and there's not entirely a ton of drama. There is a little bit of drama. But I like it. You got to just know these two guys that like walked out into the woods every day and like looking for gold and different precious metals. I really loved it. I think it'll be a divisive thing. It's not for everyone. But I binged, 13 episodes of a show on metal detecting. And
Wow.
I don't feel bad
Jeez.
about myself.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation.
Did you guys see the news or the leaked footage from Star Wars Episode 7 of Chewie ripping dude's arms off?
I didn't watch that because as soon as I heard that it's like leaked extra footage after extra footage in episode 4 and 5, I'm like, I don't need any Star Wars extra footage
Really?
in my life.
Oh, we differ there, my friend.
Really? Like that whole Jabba scene ruined it. That
Where he steps on his tail.
Oh no, I don't need it added. I don't want it back in. But I like seeing the cutting room floor. I think that enhances my appreciation for the choices they made in the film that came out.
Yeah, I did not see.
Did you end up seeing Episode 7?
I did end up seeing. Oh, that's right.
you
Yeah,
you didn't see episode 7?
So the last time I was on, we were talking about how I had lined up for a month for episode 1 and 2 in front of the Coronet, but I had not yet seen episode 7. So I did end up seeing The Force Awakens.
In the year since, you managed to see that movie.
I did manage to see it.
Like at home?
No, I saw it in the theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was fine. I think is kind of the best way to put it. I don't remember a lot of it, but I did see Rogue One on opening weekend in Japan, in the northernmost movie theater of Japan.
They proudly state this at their front door?
In that city, everything's the northernmost whatever. It's kind of like their thing.
What's the city if people want to
It's Wakane, and there actually is sort of a northernmost point that you can stand on. But they have a movie theater at the train station, and there's not much to do there. It just happened to be Rogue One's opening weekend, so I watched it, and it comes on, and it's in 3D, the sound is amazing, and it's in Japanese.
Dubbed?
So, yeah, dubbed. So my Japanese is not very good, but I was able to figure out what was happening.
And that's it. You get no subtitles?
No, I get no subtitles.
It's Japanese.
It's just, everything's in Japanese.
Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask us?
No, I saw it again in English later on in the trip. But yeah, there was a couple things where I'm like, I think this is what's happening. Yeah, but I realized because once I saw it in English, I kind of filled in a little bit of the holes. But emotionally, I was still crying in Rogue One near the end. So I don't know if it was the music or the delivery or I mean just what I had observed, but it was fantastic.
That's a pretty positive review.
Yeah.
I cried even though I didn't understand a word of the dialogue.
Well, I understood some of the dialogue enough to get what was going on. So.
Was it still called Rogue One, or did it translate to something weird?
No, it's still called Rogue One, and that was the funny thing because they would say things like Planet Killer and things like that were in English.
Sure.
And so it was.
You didn't even have an opening crawl to set you up.
No, that was it was just like, whoa, okay, we're just jumping right into the movie here.
Thanks, Gary. No opening crawl for Steve.
No, it was fantastic. So yes, I'm kind of after Rogue One, I'm back into it. So I think I'm gonna be opening weekend.
Me
again.
too, man. That's exactly how I felt about both the last two movies.
Yeah,
I saw Rogue One many times now because it was on this Disney cruise I went on. Talked all about it
I heard
last
about
week.
that. Yeah.
Awesome. Should we roll into tech news?
Sure. Let's switch to tech news.
Is there some sort of new game system? That was we have to talk about that first. That is the weirdest analog affect I've seen in a presentation in a long time.
So, I mean, I think we should explain, right?
Okay.
So there was a Switch event. Everyone knew that the Nintendo Switch was the next big console, but they had a big reveal in the past week where they talked about price and release date and the games that are coming out. But the presentation was definitely different. It was in Japan, and so it broadcast here around 8 p.m.
8 p.m. Pacific.
And it was odd. I mean, there were people up on stage, and then they would introduce the next speaker, throw their fingers in the air, and snap, and the lights would cut. It wouldn't be a fade. It wouldn't be like a digital crossfade. That somebody would literally turn the lights out, and then they'd bring them back up on the new guy. It was a pretty funny presentation, and it was all in Japanese.
I actually kind of liked it. I like that part just because I think I'm so cynical about tech presentations and reveals anyways that it was refreshing to be like, what is happening? Why is there a person constantly snapping his fingers?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy who came up with that in the boardroom. It's like, what if for transitions? Because even in the reveal video, they made a big deal about the sound effect of the Joy-Cons kind of sliding into the Switch, and so they just sort of doubled down on that for the presentation.
Yeah. I guess that's supposed to be the sound. And do we know they were called Joy-Cons before this event?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was released in a press release when they did the reveal video.
They wanted to squash any possibility of a Wiimote resurgence.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. Right? You have to. Well, and that's the weird thing because the games they showed off, 1-2 Switch, looks like they're kind of leaning into that Wii. Bowling thing,
let's get into it. Let's
start
start about some basics. What do you think of the announcement overall in terms of what we learned, what we saw?
I'm all in. I'm super excited.
Did you pre-order it?
Yeah, of course I pre-ordered it.
Steve?
Nintendo console.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not. He's got to do it for work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, for me, it's Nintendo. This is like that Star Wars thing. It's like Wookiee shit in a box. Like you can put that on the shelves and people would buy it. Like I'll do that for.
Well, actually, our
Nintendo.
friend Gary Witta said on Twitter, which I completely agree with. Like, I will, on principle, support Nintendo because they push it. Like they're constantly trying to do something a little bit different, even if sometimes a console generation of theirs feels like a GoFundMe campaign. I will still support Nintendo.
Right. What did you think about the titles that we saw?
So for me, I mean, Zelda looks fantastic. That trailer at the end really got me into it.
I did enjoy that it was, and one more thing, and Zelda shows up,
Right.
which we knew was coming.
Well, it was the release date, I think, was the big, the big
because
reveal.
people said like, oh, it's pushed back and things like that.
Zelda did look good.
Yeah, Zelda. And what's odd is they've said that the Wii U version, the only difference is probably going to be some menus and sound effects, which I thought was a strange thing. It's like, well, I guess I
What?
could still play it.
So they're not doing anything with motion control.
No, I don't think so.
That's interesting because
Yeah.
the Zelda game that came out for the Wii had motion. That was out for GameCube too, right?
Yeah. That was where you had the swinging the sword. But
Yeah.
they've I think it was IGN put out some news where they asked them what are the differences, and
That's
like,
it.
well, there's some menus and like it's 720p versus 900 or something, and yeah, there's some changes in the sound effects, which like what, but sure. So yeah, it sounds like people who have a Wii U will be able to play, the new Zelda. So do you need to buy this thing day one? Like, I don't know, how much do you want to virtually milk a cow, right? And
Stop it! Come on, don't knock until you try it, dude.
I'm gonna knock it. I'm gonna knock it a lot.
Yeah, it's $300.
It's not just cow milking; it's cooperative or competitive cow milking.
Yes, that's true. You can hold out your hand and guess how many balls are in your hand.
Is that
right?
true?
So that's a.
See, I'm in, man. That
Yeah.
sounds great.
There are parts of San Francisco you can do that in real life.
I could do that at home. I don't. So, but yeah, there's the HD Rumble.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I am curious about that. I've heard it actually does feel.
Different than anything we've
Yeah,
felt.
well, it feels like it. Well, what I heard about at the demo was people. It was there was a virtual box on your hand, and you had to tip it to see how many balls were in the box, and people were getting it right. So there's enough fidelity to where you can understand.
I've been,
that.
haptics are going to be a huge thing for VR. So any kind of
Right.
advancement we see in the consumer space, awesome.
Yeah.
Going back to the titles, though, I think one of the big criticisms, we didn't see many titles included in launch lineup. Any concerns on that side?
No, I mean I remember the N64 having Pilot Wings and Mario 64.
Yep.
And I was down with that. So I mean, one of the launch titles is a Zelda game. I only buy these consoles to play Zelda and Mario.
Right.
Everything
That's-
else is a bonus.
And quite frankly, that's kind of the problem for Nintendo, right? It's like people buy the Nintendo titles and they don't buy anything else. I heard that Bomberman is really rough, so that sounds great. 8-player Bomberman, I'm sign me right up. But if it's doesn't play well, it's gonna sell out. In the
It's
first couple
totally
months
gonna sell.
anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's what happens, in late summer when everybody's looking, what console do I buy for holiday? Oh, there's a new Mario game, Mario Odyssey.
Hope they make Holiday.
What? If we didn't really learn anything new about the controllers outside of the haptic stuff.
There was that IR where it can detect,
The IR thing. I forgot about that. Yes.
Where you can detect like rock, paper, scissors, which for those of you that don't understand, in Japan, they use that for settling arguments, or it's just used rock,
Like
paper,
Rochambeau.
Yeah, Rochambeau. It's used
everything.
a lot more than it is here. It's kind of a cultural norm.
Like in a serious context?
It actually was used to determine which auction house was going to auction off this like high-end art collection once. It was like Sotheby's and someone else, and they couldn't decide, so they had them like Rochambeau for the rights to do that. So you see it kind of everywhere, oddly enough.
Wow.
And so that when that part showed up in the video,
Do people also milk cows everywhere in Japan? Is that a cultural thing?
right? I didn't see any of that. I
Okay.
did go out to the outskirts and yeah.
Okay, so only one of the Joy-Cons, the right one, has this ability.
Right.
So that's a little strange. I was expecting them to be completely identical, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know what games they have in mind, but
And they're the
This
same
is a
price.
reason to order the neon version instead of the.
why?
Well, because the gray version, they're both gray,
Yeah, but the
I know they look-
thing-
yeah.
they look different, right? Like,
but barely.
barely, yes. And they're the same price too. They're both $50 individually, which is a lot of money.
Individually?
Yeah.
You can get them together for like 80.
Yeah, but
Ugh.
you're going to lose one, right? And you're going to lose that handle strap thing. There's all kinds of parts that, especially if you have kids, you're going to be digging through your couch and you're going to find a bunch of Joy-Cons just like under the cushions.
I'm planning to have 2 Joy-Cons and that's it. It depends what kind of games come out. I mean, if we need 4 to play, if we can do 4-player split screen Mario Kart,
Yeah.
is that what the deal is?
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be something.
You know what bugged me is that when you're doing multiplayer in Mario Kart, you get split screen on each one. Why is that? Like, why
what do you
can't
mean?
it just be full screen? Like, if you're playing
if-
around a table.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what they showed in the demo.
from the
That
video.
is odd. I would think everyone would get their own full screen, like a
Yeah.
regular like online multiplayer match.
Right.
Exactly.
That's weird.
Maybe
But-
that was just what they showed in the demo, but that's what it looked like to me.
The important thing was on the Mario Kart demo, we saw battle mode come back, right? Which was something that's been missed for a long time.
Yeah, Norm's excited about that.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that.
At the end of the day, it's $300 for kind of a geeked up tablet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
What do you
buying
think?
it.
We are not on the same page here.
No, I mean, like, honestly, I think that's the real criticism is like, this is a kind of powered up tablet and it's a lot of money for it. I was surprised. I wasn't shocked by the price, but $300 is a lot.
I mean, I think it's a lot as well. I mean, you look at holiday, it's going to be $300. You can get a PS4 with a huge library for the same price. It all depends on how much some of these games resonate, and they'll sell to the fan base, which will kind of get them through the first year. It's just, can you engage with everybody else? Because Wii U is 14 million units sold total. They need to do better than that here, and I just don't think so at that price, but maybe with a price drop.
Do you buy into the whole pitch that this is every good part of every Nintendo console that's ever been made? It's got from the NES to the Wii U. It's got elements from everyone cherry picked.
I'm not as convinced yet. I think the battery life is a concern for the portable aspect. They said like anywhere from 2.5 to 6 hours, but they specifically said Zelda's a 3-hour game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was on 12 to 14 hour flights, and I would have to plug it in somewhere. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm excited about all the kickstand repair shops that are going to pop up over the next few months for it. But I'm being a little snarky, but I'm not going to pre-order it, but I understand the enthusiasm. But I think the enthusiasm is about the titles and not the hardware as much.
Right.
That's my sort of read on it.
I don't know, dude. I mean, 1-2-Switch is a game that I actually pre-ordered too, mainly because it looks like the demo app that'll show off everything that it can do.
I was maybe a little overly negative. I want to play this thing. I want to play these games. I'm just looking at it from more of a Nintendo's future aspect. That concerns me as a Nintendo fan. Yeah, of course. I can't wait. But if I want to see what their long-term chances of making this a hit, that I'm more concerned about.
Well, the Wii was a big hit, right?
Yeah.
But mainly for Wii Sports.
And also mainly for Nintendo. That's an important thing. Like, we sold through like crazy, but the attach rate, which is the number of games other people bought, they really just bought whatever Nintendo put out. And so there's no third-party support. And that's one of the things. You walk into the store, this is a Nintendo console. You play Nintendo games. Well, third parties are they going to want to invest in a system when they don't think people are going to buy the game?
There has to be, if a third party is going to make it, they're not going to be able to port it anywhere else. Like that's one of the disincentives to making a Nintendo game.
Yep. Is
you're making it for that console and that console only.
Yeah. And given where budgets are for games, that's a really tough sell for anybody.
Well, I'm excited for this console to come out purely because I never bought a Wii U, and this will be a good time to buy a Wii U right when this thing comes out, because there'll probably be a price drop of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
You can. I got one for you.
Oh, see, there we go. Done and done.
Before we move on, we actually have a correction to make. This probably should have gone at the top.
Oh, okay.
But
what did I do?
You didn't do anything. Norm, we talked about the Glowforge last week, you'll recall.
Oh, yes.
And because we were comparing it to the new one out of...
the Muse.
Thank you.
Yep.
Out of Vegas. And we got a couple things incorrect about the Glowforge, and so they reached out to us. They wanted to correct us about a couple things.
It's water cooled.
It is water cooled.
Oh.
You can and there's say
It's internal.
You can
Yeah.
see the
okay.
reservoir on the interior front left. It's not water though, but they use an advanced coolant that is more efficient at cooling. So there you go. Also, expected tube lifetime is 8,000 hours, and it does.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
On the Glowforge, and it does have separate airflow for air assist, which purges the air off of the laser beam.
Is this the first time they've said how many hours that laser is supposed to last?
This is all public information, he said.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's buried on their website. It's just not easy to
Oh,
find.
somewhere in the forum or something. Okay. All right.
All right. Well, yesterday was the day that Norm and you had a ride-along.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So that actually might be out today.
Oh, really?
In terms of the podcast.
So
Okay.
yesterday, Norm took a ride in Jeremy's new Chevy Bolt
Yeah, electric car.
to test it out. Now you've had it just under a couple weeks right now.
Just over 2 weeks. Yeah.
How was your ride-along?
It was great. It's a fun car to drive. Electric cars are fun cars to drive, and this just has that added range, so it gets rid of the range anxiety. The takeaway is, I didn't want an electric car to drive across the country and plan my exotic road trips, planning where I'm going to stop. That doesn't appeal to me. I wanted an electric car in order to drive around the Bay Area. I just wanted one that I could actually get to Santa Cruz and back on a one charge. If I can never charge away from the home, I'm happy. So that's what this kind of range gets you. And that's why I wanted this car. That's why I waited for something with this kind of range.
Have you
other than
charged-
that, the car feels really good.
Have you
it's
charged
peppy.
away from home yet?
No,
Oh.
no, and I'd be happy if I don't have to. And like I say in the video, I am excited about having an electric car because now everything that I have charges at home. I don't have to refuel at a gas station or somewhere else. I like that every time I get in the car in the morning, it's just full. I love that.
Any problems you've had with it so far?
Yeah, there's some nitpicky issues. Bluetooth audio ducts between tracks,
Oh.
which it doesn't over CarPlay though. There's 20 buttons on the steering wheel, which I think is absurd.
What?
Yeah.
Is it like an F1? You got like that red button and all the
You
other
can't. No, you can. There is like a engage regen braking paddle,
stuff? Okay.
but yeah, it's just nuts.
20 buttons.
20 buttons plus a horn.
Do you get a feel for it? After you've been riding for for a couple weeks.
I guess that's the logic behind it. I just think it's silly.
That is excessive.
Yeah. Especially whatever. It's a great car. It's really solid. It's got a heated steering wheel. Which
What?
Yeah.
A what now?
Yeah, it's absurd, right? But that's a wonderful thing this month in San Francisco. After this month, no big deal.
You can never touch a cold steering wheel ever again.
No, why?
It's like the heated toilet seats in Japan. You just can't. Gotta get used to
That is different.
Yes.
That is a necessity after you've had it. I've had one on like my Amazon wish list forever. The heated toilet
That's
seat.
just what Norm said.
Oh, heated toilet seat changes your life.
Totally fun to drive. It's super peppy. You press the gas pedal like any electric
get that
car.
torque,
You
like-
get that boom
Yeah.
right off the line, and it doesn't stop. Like it never shifts gears. Like you just zzz, and it's a ton of fun. I mean, you've driven golf carts before. It's like that, but a lot faster.
Did you have any learning curve, or just adjustment going to the fully electric car just because it's so quiet? It's like it has that incredible acceleration. It just drives a little differently.
It's just fun. Like that aspect is totally fun. There's a danger aspect when I'm pulling out of my garage because nobody hears me coming.
Yeah.
It's like it's a ninja. There's that episode of the Office where was it Dwight or somebody was creeping up on Michael Scott or somebody in the parking lot in a Prius, but they were below 5 miles an hour, so it was on electric power. And they're like, it's that kind of thing. So when I'm pulling out of my garage, no one hears me coming. I wish that it made a sound when you're doing that. Actually, like when you're coming.
I guess you have a horn.
That's annoying though.
It's
Like,
one of the 20 buttons on the steering wheel.
every time I leave my garage, I have to honk my horn. It's kind of annoying.
Oh wow.
You can probably get one of those like beep beep backing up kind of sounds.
That's what it should do.
Yeah.
I shouldn't.
That is pretty annoying too,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
I don't know. So how for people who do want to buy a Bolt, is it easy to buy right now, or is it just going out to pre-orders?
Yeah, I was told it was a 3-month wait
Okay.
in San Francisco
Okay.
and Daly City. So they're making them now. They're trying to make 30,000 this year.
All right. Yeah, I was just kind
That's
of.
not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. Oh, this car's great, but you can't buy it, right? That's always the problem. But,
Yeah,
all right.
it's a ton of fun. I mean, it's not sexy, and it's not even aerodynamic. It's not like the guy who designed it said it's a disaster for aerodynamics, but It's very spacious.
Best review ever from the designer. This design has problems.
At least it's not an Aztec. Is what
because I'm sure when they got the project, when they got the electric car project, they're like, okay, it's got to be super aerodynamic. Everything's got to, fall in line, and we got to sacrifice aesthetics for that. Well, they did sacrifice aesthetics, but not for aerodynamics, more for cabin space.
I think you're overstating the looks. I mean, it doesn't look as good as a Tesla, but it looks fine.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like I would say the Prius looks.
It looks like a Fit.
It does look like a Honda Fit.
That's right.
And you're right.
Like, it doesn't look terrible,
But
which is how people are describing it.
It doesn't look like a fun car. That's the problem. Like, if Chevy would if they would get their marketing in line with the feel of the car and the design of the car in line with the feel, they could have a real fun car in every way. This car is fun to drive. You just never know it.
Right. I mean, I've had GTIs for years now, and this once I saw the Bolt, I'm like, this might be my electric car, something like this.
It looks more practical to me than the Tesla. Like, the Tesla, I feel slightly intimidated to own that car.
It's definitely practical. Steve Jobs said that he picked one up. He said that's his new regular car.
Steve Jobs from the grave.
Steve Wozniak. I'll erase that because I'm editing this podcast.
No, I think you're keeping that in.
Keep that one in. It's like when Fred Astaire was dancing with the vacuum. It's pretty much, yeah.
Well, what about this idea for your electric car, if you could go home and not have to plug it in, that it would charge itself wirelessly?
That sounds
there would be a
terrifying.
pad.
That's terrifying.
Why is that terrifying?
You're going to transmit, what? 30 volts wirelessly?
Sure.
I don't think so.
Well, there's a new idea. Well, it's not a new idea, actually. But
240 volts, 30 amps. That's a lot.
It is a lot of energy. No question. But there's this, I mean, we're pretty familiar with wireless charging in the induction way that it charges phones and other devices. There's a relatively new idea for electric cars that we could use resonant coupling, which is a form of wireless charging where you basically create this resonant frequency between the wireless charging pad and the actual receiver to generate more significant volumes of energy, let's just say. That's right. I'm talking in Transformers language. Volumes of energy.
Energon cubes.
Yeah,
right?
cubes of energy.
Right.
How close do they have to be?
Well, this hasn't really. I haven't seen the work actually piloted for cars. I think Steve. I found an article about this, and I think Steve took a deep dive, like I did, into this.
Well, so they haven't said distance, but because it's directional rather than kind of floating all like a big cloud, there can be some distance. I think the use case was you would have a pad on the floor of your garage, and you park on top of it. So maybe 2 feet or something like that from the receiver and the transmitter. So
the crazy idea that is proposed is that you could have an actual car or like a lane of road that has this under it. So while you would drive over it, your car could charge.
Right. And that's for mass transit as well, right? You have it on buses and things like that.
That would be amazing. But the plugging your car in is not a pain point.
That's interesting. Have a third rail for cars. Mm-hmm. So you really could do long road trips.
Yeah, but do you mind plugging in your car?
Not at all.
Okay. Well, then maybe this doesn't solve anything.
Right. Well, I mean, there's the supercharger network there's something coming where you'll be able to have your car autonomously drive to, across country potentially, and it will charge itself at supercharger chargers.
Oh, is that weird snake thing that
I doubt it'll actually do that. That was Tony Stark.
Right.
But it is they are some kind of hookup autonomously.
See, I still have the anxiety that if I had an electric vehicle and I went out, there wouldn't be any chargers available.
That's the thing. And that's what I looked at. If I want to go from here to LA, there's really one good spot in the middle on the 5.
Right.
And it's at a hotel. And I know there's going to be some other people there using it because there's one charger. So I'm not willing to gamble on that. You can't reserve it.
Well, Google Maps is doing something for the rest of us that have similar anxiety when it comes to parking. And we live in San Francisco, which is one of the worst parking cities in the country. Parking difficulty is going to be integrated into Google Maps when you map a location. So if I was mapping a location here, it would say, at this time of day, parking is not so good. It took, on average, somebody, 10 minutes to find parking.
Now, is this in major metro areas or everywhere?
I think they're going to integrate it just fully into Google Maps.
Okay.
I think they're going to do it like the way they do the traffic data, which is
Mm-hmm.
aggregating already existing sources of information. And there's already a lot of like parking databases, but also just grabbing information from Android users.
Right. Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, this is for when you're visiting a city, right? Like, you ask us, oh, I'm going to the Haight and I'm driving. It's like, good luck. But
I would love if Google Maps sent me a notice, good luck,
yeah.
before I even got in the car.
Why are you even driving?
I think this makes a ton of sense. This would be a great feature for Google Maps.
Really? It's such why?
Because
is
it's-
it going to change what you do?
It might change if I drive myself or take a Uber or something.
Yeah.
If parking's that bad.
You already pretty much know in your own city if it's going to be good or bad, area, time of day, time of week.
Sure, but there's a use case where you're going to someplace different.
Yeah.
Oh, you're renting a car in the city, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to this area. I don't know where it is.
I guess if you're visiting a city, it makes more
It's
sense.
such a
Yeah,
low
yeah.
it's such a low cost though. It's like adding one line of descriptor text in Google Maps.
Yeah,
You
you're
already
right. You're
use
right.
it.
More information is better. This is not really useful because you can always get lucky. You can always get unlucky. You drive around looking for parking. Sometimes it's better to wait.
Fair enough.
I want to know, like, if it could direct me to
A parking
like
spot.
a parking spot would be ideal. But then everyone would get that direction. Everyone would like zip over there. That'd be no
Like
good.
6 cars all at the
Right.
one parking spot.
But if there's like some kind of system for getting me to a parking spot faster, that would be good. You
Well,
know.
they had that. They had a company tried to do that in San Francisco. It was called like Parking Monkey or something like that, where you could sell your
Yeah.
public meter parking
Right.
space to the next customer.
that got shut down.
It got shut down because you're like basically taking public land and leasing it to somebody else without paying the public land. Yeah, it was crazy. I will tell you something that is not useful. It's when you think you're ordering a drone from a crowdfunding site and that company shuts down.
I missed the segue there.
Yeah, it was a terror. I'm not good at this compared to Norm.
Right.
I should not
Did you
be
do,
allowed to
did
do
you do
segments.
that? Did you order a drone?
I didn't order the Lily drone. So we're talking about Lily, which is the company that came out with this incredible video of a drone that followed you. You could throw it out in the air and then it would track you. And it was, their video showed all these like sort of extreme adventures. And I think 4 days ago, they sent a notice to all of their crowdfunding supporters that the company is shutting down.
And they said they're going to issue refunds, right?
They said all of the money from the campaign that were pre-orders were kept in like cold storage, according to them. So they are going to refund everyone. But this is just another example of a huge crowdfunding campaign. I think they raised like something like $34 million and an additional 15 in venture funding. Not coming to fruition. Did you order this drone at all?
I remember seeing the video and thinking it was never going to come out. Like, because if in the video, I think they like threw it and it like splashed in the water and then took off from the water. And it's like, there's no way that's going to be a thing.
I remember how much that video passed around and that campaign passed around.
Right. It was a great video.
because of how good the video
Yeah.
was and how much they must have spent on that video. But they never produced any units. The city of San Francisco is actually suing the company for false claims right now.
The city?
Or city or county, one of those two.
But a
They're
the
incorporated
government.
here. Yeah, the government
Wow.
is suing them for
wow.
misleading claims. This is one of those things that like hurts the larger drone market, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
It's got too much momentum. It's too sexy. It's too new. There's always new stuff coming out constantly.
Right. How many backers is that 34 million, right? Like it was what, $500-$600?
I thought you were gonna say it hurts crowdfunding. Like it just lessens people.
I feel like the crowdfunding hurts have already come, and we've talked about Pebble having to shut down. I mean, some of these are the faces of successful hardware crowdfunding. So, and Lily was considered a pretty huge success.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many.
Yeah, so this is the second big drone failure on crowdfunding, right? There was that European one that also failed.
What did that do?
That was something in like the 20 million range as well. It just, everybody wants a drone and they wanted to do things that we're just not able to do yet.
It's hard to keep up with DJI too. I mean,
Yeah.
they iterate so fast.
What was it, 9 months between the...
Between Phantoms?
Yeah, so...
Crazy.
Yeah.
So if they raised $34 million in pre-sales and the unit on crowdfunding was 500, but they're like pre-ordering it for 900. That's like 50,000 units. That's not 5,000 units.
Yeah.
That is a huge number of drone sales.
That's a lot of pissed off people.
Oh, that's terrible. And it was also they also didn't handle it well. Like it was like this kind of non-apology email. It was just sort of terrible. I'm actually kind of glad they're being sued, because this idea of just releasing a really slick video, I know we should be skeptical. Consumers should, take care of themselves. But
Yeah, if there was any shadiness involved, I'm glad they're being sued too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's like, what did they do for that
I guess we'll
production?
find out.
Because Kickstarter, you have to have a working prototype, right?
You used to.
Oh, no longer.
you don't have to have a working prototype.
When I did my Kickstarter back in the early days, you couldn't have a napkin sketch. You had to have a
right.
working prototype. I think those rules have changed.
Oh, wow. Oh, we'll see.
We're finally getting Android Wear 2.0. Neither of you have an Android watch.
What's
right?
that? Is that the watch?
It's the watch OS.
Why do they call it Wear? Are they trying to expand into headbands and stuff?
Android Wear is what it's always been called.
Okay.
Yeah.
But obviously, like the brand implies more than a watch.
Yeah, but I mean, there isn't really that at this point. It's just
Okay.
watches at this endeavor. Wear 2.0 has gone through so many iterations.
Yeah, because it was at Google I/O last year, right? And then it was really messed up in a lot of ways.
Yes, and they had the reception was quite bad to that announcement at I/O. They went through 5 different sort of betas with different developers around this before they refined it. We finally have a launch date of February 9th. The new OS is coming out. It's going to feature just not that much that's incredible, but things that just should be there. And support for NFC and Android Pay payments, which is like it should be there. That's what iOS or watchOS does already. But I don't think that's a huge deal. Google Assistant finally comes on board. There's going to be a mini keyboard.
Oh, no.
No, you're not
Yes.
going to type on your watch.
Oh, I'm going to try.
This is going to be like my old calculator watch, where you just have like a stylus or
The
something.
Casio?
Yeah.
I had that.
Yeah,
I had
I
that
did.
for years.
Yeah. I think it's great.
I couldn't use
the
that either.
The data bank,
Yeah.
right? I had all my phone numbers in there.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
Wow. I forgot about the data
Well,
bank.
what was the Timex one where you actually, it was Microsoft branded? Anyway, we're getting.
That was one of the first things I ever really tried to fix, because I took off one of the buttons on there, wore out, so I had to I unscrewed the whole back. It was the first.
Did it fix?
It never really fixed,
Right.
but it was the first thing I ever really took apart. and
That's
tried to
what's
fix.
important.
Yeah, that's what's important about that device.
Yeah. So I don't remember seeing anywhere stuff from CES. I mean, is this going to
That's the other thing.
Congress? Like, what's going to?
No new devices were really announced.
No headbands.
Why do you want a headband so
He's
much?
like the Terry Porter of technology. He just
thinking-
wants the
I want like a laser beam up there.
a laser beam.
I don't know. Just thinking, Cyclops kind of stuff.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. How do you
That's
use the
scary.
interface? Is it like little vibrations in your
thought
skull?
pattern. See, like if you just have to think it
Right.
and it's up there wrapped around your brain, this is the kind of product that we need.
Atari had the Mind Link back in the 80s where you were able to control things on the screen via this headband that you wore.
What?
It only went into prototype stage, and it apparently...
I've tried a
Sorta
lot of
worked.
those kind of neural headbands.
Whether
that,
it's that
try to
Jedi game
Yeah.
is one of them. It's
you
it's
try
kind
to
of like
control things. Was it the same type of technology?
Same type of technology, but this is like 82. So, yeah.
That's not a good sign.
You
for
should
them.
have heard about the video game he told us about a month ago, where you think you can see in your mind the video game that they're,
Oh, this is where they're projecting it into your head? Yeah.
they're beaming some sort of Pac-Man maze into your head,
They're
Yeah.
beaming the direction you're supposed to take.
Yeah.
Next direction you take in the
Yeah.
frame.
and you see it.
You see the direction you're supposed to go.
Yes.
That's-
I'm excited for that.
That's great.
So is every old Android watch going to support it?
Yeah, but my watch, I have the LG Urbane, doesn't have NFC, so I won't get that update, but I'll get everything else.
Oh, so it actually, even for like the old Gear watches and things like that, we'll get 2.0?
It's supposed to be all the devices.
Okay.
I know the Moto 360 line, the Huawei's, the LGs will get it. I haven't heard. I don't know. I guess if you have the original Gear, it won't get that update.
All right.
But I don't know about the Gear 2, which is what most people have.
I'm sure I have a couple in a drawer somewhere.
Oh, that is a resounding endorsement of that OS and device.
They added in the latest WatchOS, they added the ability to type, but you don't type. You draw your characters. You sketch one character at a time. It's a way to write.
But do you have a keyboard?
With the stylus we have 10 of.
Hang on, Jeremy. I'm still typing.
Can't wait to see you type on your watch.
I'm going to do it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you
It's
will.
going to be terrible.
What is this gibberish text message I just got from Kishore? That's weird.
All right. So out of the world of Google, we did get, I thought this was kind of interesting, is that Google has built custom chips to deal with security issues on their servers.
Not surprising at all. They've been building their own hardware forever. I mean, when I was working there, they were already
But chips is
customizing boards.
totally different level of hardware development than what we've seen them.
Given the velocity they were on and how important security was, it doesn't surprise me. It's weird that this is the first time we've heard of it, but
I'm pretty impressed because I think that's non-trivial to get into designing your own chips.
a lot of really smart people working there.
Yeah.
That's our hot take.
Yes.
On all this. Well, I think it's a great reveal that they have all these custom security silicon chips in their servers. I don't know. I'm kind of a dummy about this. Does that mean that it's going to be that much safer?
Yeah, I mean, I think what was interesting about when they made this announcement was not just the fact that they have these chips, it's the process by which they do things like check in code and how things are audited, things are encrypted as they're written to the disk. So it's really, if someone were trying to be, someone malicious was trying to break into the Google systems, this is what they would have to go through in order to try to get access to your data or modify Google code to do things that, maybe Google doesn't want. So I like the commitment to that security.
I think the fact that Google's CEOs, founders are engineers trickles down in so many interesting ways like this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Last week I got my annual physical, and I went to the doctor's office. It's the same doctor's office that it's always been for the past 15, 20 years. It's kind of a painful experience. My wife belongs to One Medical Group, which is like this concierge service, which is awesome.
Yes, and I'm also part of One Medical.
I, too, am One Medical.
You do have One Medical, too?
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you like it?
Yeah, it's all that I've ever had since I came to San Francisco, so I can't compare it to the other doctor's offices. But it's a great service.
It's all streamlined. Like you book your appointments online, and and the customer service is better.
They don't do blood draws there. Did they just start doing that?
I think they just started doing it. There's
That's
labs inside, like sort of a sub lab.
But you get like better customer service. It's a better sort of experience of going to the doctor.
Right. The reports are sent to you.
So
via the
everything's
apps.
digital.
Yeah, so you can actually read through things like that.
Which is awesome. So there's a next level from that. And I'm forgetting the company name, but imagining walking to a doctor's office that's gotten the Apple Store makeover. So you walk in, you check in, or you book your appointment, online and stuff. You walk in, you check in via iPad. You walk over to a kiosk, and you insert your finger, and it takes vitals from you. It measures your weight, takes your body mass index, all in a kiosk, which is very Westworld to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into the doctor's office, and all that's displayed on a touchscreen on the wall. Here's what I think is interesting. So apparently it has an AI that is listening to your conversation with the doctor and picks out key information and records it into your sort of medical record.
So the first time I see a real person is once I get into the doctor's room.
Right.
Is that right? And then a real person comes in.
Yes, a real doctor and has a conversation with you.
But an AI is listening to the whole thing.
Yes.
We are headed towards idiocracy. We're gonna have doctors that just
You think
follow
this is
whatever
idiocracy?
whatever the computer says. It's oh, okay, that sounds fine.
I thought you were going to say Dr. Max Headroom comes on the screen when I'm in the doctor's office.
The company's called Forward. And I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting because I when I was getting my physical, my doctor spent a lot of time on a laptop typing in notes.
That's true.
And that's, they already aren't going to spend very much time with you. On average, a doctor sees you for less than 15 minutes a year. So this idea that the experience of him or of them typing into a laptop is going to, further degrade that 15 minutes. If this can actually pick up the conversation, record it, and then seamlessly communicate what's going on to everyone involved, that sounds kind of great.
Is the doctor going to rely on that AI for things that the doctor shouldn't?
Well, if the doctor doesn't have a laptop, I don't know how else they're gonna record what's said.
It's like,
I mean, they're not gonna. It's not gonna run tests. It's just listening to your conversation.
Right.
To be like, I exercise twice a day, and the doctor will be like, no, you don't. I saw your sensor readings.
Okay. Are you signing up? You're going to do this? You looking
No, because it's sort of ridiculously expensive. It's $150 a month.
Oh.
Like one medical is $150 a year, which isn't that
still,
much.
I think people
Yeah.
balk.
Which is
Right.
still
Yeah.
because it's healthcare and people have moral feelings about healthcare, and that's still like 10-15 bucks a month
Right.
that you're paying on top of your insurance costs.
Oh, it opened January 17th.
They did open?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And this
get
is
an appointment here.
like former Google, Uber folks said, hey, how can we make this better?
The funny part for me, and there's a picture of this, is that when you have to give a urine sample, you don't have to hand it off to somebody. You like go into the bathroom and there's like a hole in the wall that you like put your urine sample to, and it like
you should
takes
just be able
it
to
somewhere.
pee in the wall. Well, I guess that would only work for us. Female.
There's a room. Pee wherever you want. We're gonna collect it.
Just like walk into the silver room.
All right.
Make it a game.
How about I give you access to millions upon millions of email accounts with one job?
Too much responsibility.
Too much responsibility. Well, that's how a lot of Microsoft employees feel, who's had the job of scanning email accounts for nefarious items like child pornography and other things.
Yeah.
Those workers are now suing Microsoft.
Doesn't surprise me at all. So when I was at YouTube, we had content moderators as well who had to scan through flagged videos to find this, and they offered them counseling services. They could only work on those in that role for, I think it was like 3 to 6 months. It was some shortened time period. And even then they had people like, yeah, it's extremely disturbing because your entire day, you're just seeing some of the most horrible things. So this lawsuit doesn't surprise me at all, given what they've claimed happened to them.
Yeah, so one of the people, and they're suing them for on the grounds that they're suffering PTSD.
Right.
And one of the people in the suit alleges they saw a video that was like abuse and murder of a child and has been suffering since then. And like these roles, why are they done by humans still?
Well,
Is there still not an automated way to do this?
I mean, you can't tell, right? There's like, what if it's a movie scene or something like that? And I remember, this is getting weird in terms of AI, in terms of determining is there nudity or something like that. I think one of the scientists was working on a nipple detector, basically, so you can, it's like, oh, okay, that's probably nudity. But there's things like, is that offensive? Is it not? People would be uploading, like, for instance, cartoons and then splicing in something awful in the middle. Right. And so like real terrible things like that. And you had to have someone look at it at the end of the day.
So this is a difficult position for Microsoft because they were offering like counseling services. They reportedly were encouraging people to take breaks and whatnot. Like, what do you do here?
It's
if
hard.
It has to be a human endeavor.
And you don't want to incentivize people to have these positions and
No.
financially, like
But they're
people
needed,
are hard
too.
up to,
Yeah.
maybe they really need the cash. You don't want to pay. I guess, do you want to pay these people a ton of money in order to have these jobs?
Well, that was the thing with from my experience, it was just they were limited to the amount of time they could spend doing this, because there would potentially be long-term effects of viewing this material over and over again.
No doubt.
Right. So you had to like train someone else and then just rotate through. Obviously, they're during that process, they're improving algorithms, and so hopefully we get to a point where fewer humans have to do this. But I don't think it's going to be completely eliminated for a while.
If this goes to court, there's no way Microsoft doesn't cave, because any jury that sees any of the things that they have to watch is going to be just full bore. Given what they want.
I guess so, but how far does a company have to go to protect the workers here? I mean, if they're providing all the services, if they're like, what do you like? There is like a rock and a hard place here,
I
right?
think anybody at the level making those decisions probably has never seen any of these videos. It's not fair.
I mean, we did actually. I think from what I saw, there was hey, we know some of this stuff is terrible. Let's try to limit the exposure. It didn't say how long these people were in these roles, or some of it kind of sounded a little callous in terms of like, yeah, just take a smoke break. It's like, maybe this is just, I need to shut down for the day, right? There's probably if you see something that's that disturbing, it's, you clock out, right? It's just stop and come back when you're ready. I don't know.
I'm not the king of transitions, so I'm just going to go to something else.
All right.
Norway has announced that they're turning off FM radio, county by county.
What?
Totally eliminating
Why?
FM radio.
Why?
Well, they found that digital's better, and that you get a better quality signal. You get, a better utilization of the product. They found that a number of people met this sort of percentage threshold were already listening digitally.
Mm-hmm.
So the number of people affected was not that significant.
Wait,
And-
what are you talking about digitally? If I have an FM radio in my car, that's still standard FM radio, right?
Yeah, but
That's
there's
not digital.
well, you can have a digital FM receiver or digital receiver that receives those on different frequencies.
And is that what typically is in cars now, or is it
I
still
don't know what's in
standard,
our
like the old
cars.
school?
Do you know what's in
Mine's got a Sirius.
Well, that's different.
Yeah,
Like, that's satellite radio.
Satellite, right? Yeah, I don't. To be honest, I never turn on my radio, so I can't say.
I don't know. Now I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I mean, every car's got FM and probably AM still.
Right?
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
look into this.
It's like
because,
VHF, UHF, right?
because
We go back to that.
I definitely know that FM stations are broadcasting digitally and in analog right now in the U.S.
Both.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's currently in cars. Now I need to know when they. I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised if most of our antennas receive digital signals now in modern cars.
Okay.
Right. So Norway's just
You know who knows? It's the listeners.
Yeah, the
They-
listeners
they-
are going to
they
issue a
always
lot of
know.
scathing corrections
Right.
on my knowledge of this. But what they found is a large percentage of people in Norway are already listening to the digital stations. So they're shutting them off and then selling off that extra bandwidth for
that's
other
spectrum
use.
for something else. Okay.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about bandwidth limitations. Now, I have no idea who's buying that FM bandwidth and what they would use it for.
Right.
But we know there's pretty significant limitations on the spectrum. So I think this sounds great.
As a preservationist, I'm a little concerned. That this is whenever there's a technology shift, the ability to access what was before, becomes more difficult. So, I mean, FM's been around for a long time. Hopefully, people have figured out what to do. But some things might stop working during the zombie apocalypse. We're going to want that analog spectrum back.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Anything like the power grid goes down, people have FM transmitters in their house. You're going to want to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel better, while the UK is considering something close, the quote from the New York Times article about this is, closing down the FM is not even on the horizon in the United States.
All right.
So you can feel better about that.
Just Norway.
Hey, do we have a message from Norm?
We certainly do. Norman Chan, let's switch to him. No, let's unmute and then switch to him.
We want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this week's episode of This Is Only a Test, and that's Crizal No Glare Lenses. If you wear glasses, then you know that fingerprints, smudges, scratches, and glares can be a constant obstruction to your vision and a huge distraction. Sometimes you end up focusing more on what's on your glasses than what's going on around you. That's why you want Crizal No Glare Lenses. They give you the clearest vision possible by offering resistance to glares, scratches, and smudges. That means no more blinding glares from the headlights of oncoming traffic while driving at night, no more fingerprint smudges from taking your glasses on and off, or scratches from cleaning your lenses on your shirt. And because Crizal No Glare lenses say clear and reduce distracting glare, your friends and family can actually see your eyes, not just your glasses. Look better, feel better, and more importantly, be prepared for whatever comes your way with clear vision. Go to Crizal.com to learn more. That's CRIZAL.com and start living life in the clear. Now on with the show.
Now it's time for a moment of science. Let's keep the depressing stories on a roll here.
No.
Let's talk about the most notable death of 2016. I know 2016 is renowned for all the celebrity deaths, and there are a number of famous scientific figures that died, but there is one that I think is going to resonate for many, many years to come, and we don't even know her name.
Wow, what's the name?
So, well, we don't know it. It was a woman in Nevada.
Tell us more.
She passed away in Reno. She had a bacterial infection. She had been traveling in India for a number of years, broke her leg there, and developed a bacterial infection that from a bacteria referred to as a CRE. This is a gut bacteria that typically has resistance to a certain class of antibiotics, and that's where it gets its name. Well, they treated her with 26 different antibiotics, and none of them worked.
Okay.
So she eventually passed away. But this bacteria had developed resistance to every known antibiotic that the CDC had available to it.
And this is a fear the CDC's had for quite a while.
Right.
It is.
I think you talked about this earlier in the year, the MCR1 gene.
Which is colistin resistance.
Okay.
And it's this idea that there's this gene that could pass easily from bacteria to other hosts. And that MCR1 gene is the gene that would transfer.
Right. That wasn't this, but
That had
this.
developed resistance to colistin, which is almost like an antibiotic of last resort.
Did they try that with this woman as well?
Yep.
Okay. That's scary.
Did they capture the virus?
The bacteria?
Sorry, the bacteria.
Oh, yeah, they have it.
Okay.
You can't kill it through antibiotic means. I mean, you can kill it through,
Sure.
typical
Radiation,
means, like
whatever.
radiation, all that kind of stuff. But what was, I think, really terrifying is there's a great article in Stat News about this, which is like a health and medical news site. The quotes in here from the CDC reps are terrifying. They're like, yep, this was coming. Like, they're very, like, I don't know. Steve, how you put it to me?
Yeah, well, they were interviewing one of the researchers, and they said, I think this is before this article came out. They said, hey, is there antibiotic resistant bacteria? And she said, literally, funny you should ask, and then went into this description, which someone from the CDC saying, oh, here's something funny. Here's this bacteria that's resistant to everything we have that we could throw at it. It was almost, they're expecting it, and there's nothing we can do.
The quote at the end of the article is, how scared should we? How close are we to the edge of the cliff? That's the question the reporter asked. And the scientist asked, we're already falling off the cliff. It's just happening far away from us. The other quote from this article is that this bacteria that killed this woman, they suspect that there's a bunch of people carrying it that just don't have any symptoms yet. They're just wandering around right now.
Who are not susceptible, potentially?
We don't know.
All right.
Well, I think that's the most terrifying and probably most important death of 2016, because this bacterial resistance has been hinted at as being a pretty gigantic science issue that's going to come our way. Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we don't know. But it's coming.
It's the arms race, right? It's the new arms race.
Yeah, and we're losing really, really badly.
Yeah.
Let's switch to something uplifting. Fucking SpaceX again.
Yay.
I know. It was punny to mention this. But SpaceX, again, this time, first time in the Pacific, launched a rocket to space, landed it on a barge.
This is their first launch since the
explosion.
The explosion, right? Yeah.
No, the fast fire. It was not an explosion.
That's right.
Oh,
Yes.
fast fire. That's right.
Right.
Thank you, Elon Musk surrogate, Steve Lin. Yeah, it was an explosion. Whatever.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Did you watch the video? It's great.
Yeah. I am so jaded.
You're already over it.
I didn't watch
over
the video.
it.
Like, okay, I've seen
This is like
SpaceX.
that Simpsons, why they sent Homer into space, right? It's like no one cares about launches anymore.
It's horrible.
Spice it up.
I assumed the rocket took off and landed vertically, and it was amazing.
Yes.
All right.
I hate you.
I was actually surprised Iridium, which is the satellite they launched, was still in business. This was a satellite phone company, late 90s, communications network, and then I heard they went bankrupt, and I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, I don't really know much about the history of that company, but it was their satellite. So I
Yeah.
wonder what their I didn't really check out what this satellite was for. Maybe that's how I'm jaded. I'm like, oh, I care about the landing. I don't care about what they're actually sending to space.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming it's from what I read, it's just more satellites to increase coverage or increase bandwidth, right, for their network.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
You know this? Do you have any more stories?
I have one last story.
Hit me.
We lost Gene Cernan, was the last astronaut to walk on the moon. He passed away in his 80s. American hero, just hero to the globe. There's an incredible documentary on his life and the end of the Apollo and moon missions called The Last Man on the Moon. I think it's on Netflix. It's a really great watch. I really recommend it. And it features Gene pretty significantly.
Yeah, it's Apollo 17.
I think it was
Something like
17.
that. Yeah, and it's like they went the furthest out of any astronauts, and they had like a mobile base and went to a mountain or something. So yeah, also probably the furthest out. On
They
the
had a
moon.
base on the moon?
Well, it's by the Transformers wrecked ship.
On the dark side?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So think about it this way. If you're born after 1972, there's not been a human on the moon in your lifetime.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Which is like, that's a long time ago now, 72. And I get why, like, from pure science basis, there's not really a good reason to send astronauts to the moon.
It's expensive.
For the science. Yeah, it's really expensive.
We've learned what we can.
There's no Cold War with Russia. There's a different kind of war with Russia now.
But people have suggested tourism is a possible future market.
Sure, but we're not.
I want to get
there
into
yet.
orbit first. And
Yeah.
then we'll get to the moon.
But I can't help but feeling a little bit sad that in 40 plus years there hasn't been a human on the moon at all, and pretty soon we're not going to have anyone alive that has been to the moon.
Like Neil deGrasse talks all the time about how NASA provides inspiration to young people, and did with the moon landings. That was a phenomenal effort in order to provide the next generation with incentive to become scientists and learn more. And we haven't had that moon landing for our generation or any since. You're right.
Yeah.
That is it for the.
What an uplifting moment of
No,
science.
that documentary is actually pretty great
All right.
and pretty uplifting.
I want to throw out one piece of news. It's not even news. I saw it in Reddit 3D printing, and it could fall into science because it's kind of it's got these mathematical patterns. But it's somebody you've seen a zoetrope where like
So
the
you spin the
Pixar
thing
thing
around?
where they have a bunch of 3D printed models and then they activate a strobe light and they look like they're animating. Have you seen this, Kishore? So it's like it sort of is like the old animation spinny wheel of like the horse running.
Right.
Well, this guy has made 3D elements, 3D printed models that animate, but they're just one model. And so when you spin them at the right frequency and you turn on a strobe light at the right frequency, they do this. So check that out. It's like Blooms 2. You got to check this out. Just Google Blooms 2 YouTube. And he has all these amazing shapes that come to life. And
Oh, wow.
it makes me want to 3D print them and get a record player and spin them around.
And is it just like a standard strobe or like some sort of special?
It's like synchronized?
It has to be the right. Yeah,
Yeah,
it has to be
yeah.
the right speed. But I'm thinking it might be possible just to if you get a camera and its refresh rate synced up with the right speed of the spinner,
Right.
it might just show up on camera automatically.
Oh, those are really cool.
I like
wild
those
stuff.
zoetropes a lot. It reminds me of. Did you see the light-based zoetropes? The videos about that where you print a device, but then you only have one beam of light coming through, and then you darken the whole room and have the thing spin around, and you can actually see like a human, like it shows an animated human walking.
That's cool.
Because you're just getting illuminated the one slice as it rotates.
Right. Wow. That's cool.
So that's a different variant on that. I'll put links to those videos.
Oh,
in the
good
show
idea.
notes.
You're good with show notes. People like you.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
So, you got the Oculus suit first on the list here.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit happening.
Well, we knew it was coming. I mean, it's been going on for a while. I guess the big news now is that they've announced that Zuckerberg will testify.
He testified yesterday.
By now has testified. Yeah.
And I think there was another today, and Palmer Luckey is testifying today.
For
while
people
we're recording.
that don't know, this is the ZeniMax lawsuit against Oculus and thereby Facebook, alleging that they stole, particularly John Carmack stole IP from them that is now core to what Oculus represents.
Right. And yeah, in the testimony yesterday, they called into question things like the due diligence, the technical due diligence. They wanted to start the due diligence on Friday and sign the deal by Monday. So it was like, was 3 days enough time for you to really figure things out? Zuck obviously insisted that it was Oculus technology, and he also kind of had a dig at ZeniMax at the end, where they said, "Did you know about this ZeniMax lawsuit?" And he said, "Well, lawyers will bring important things to my attention, not people who come out of the woodwork. And I never heard of ZeniMax before all of this."
Wow.
So, yeah.
Carmack was pretty virulent in his commentary too. I think what's interesting is this idea that that Palmer didn't have the necessary sort of skill set to
Right.
develop all of this, so it must be stolen. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I like Carmack's quote. He said he would only use a Mac under duress.
That's right.
It was
Part
in
of his
response to
testimony.
there was some evidence on a Mac, and
Yeah.
he was implying it certainly had nothing to do with him.
I think I actually see this as a positive development. This suit has been dragging on for a while. Like, it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. It seems like we're heading towards resolution.
Yeah.
And resolution is just good for all parties involved. It won't be a shadow that hangs over anything that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
We missed a story last week that you wanted to
What was
talk
it?
about. That JobSim
Oh, whatever.
Sim has passed 3 million in sales.
I love JobSim. There was a big list on Reddit recently of your favorite games of 2016. I don't know if anybody mentioned JobSim because it's kind of the go-to. It's like everyone's played it. It's the demo everyone gives. I think it's phenomenal. It's a great game, and apparently,
You go back to it at all?
yeah. Sometimes I mean I don't, but when my son does, and when people come over, they play it. But I finished it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know how much more there is to do, but it passed 3 million in sales. According to them, it's the most popular VR title to date.
Well, in terms of pure sales?
Yeah,
3 million seems like a lot.
does seem like a lot. I mean, I'm not even sure there's 3 million VR devices. I
Right.
mean, there is PSVR now. Is it on PSVR? Maybe that's how they hit that number.
I think so. I have a PSVR, but I haven't turned on my PS4 since I got back. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll have to check.
Well, good for them. I mean, JobSim's
Yes, it is
phenomenal.
on PSVR.
Gear
it's-
VR, maybe?
Uh,
Oh, no, I guess that
can't be
wouldn't
on
make any
Gear
sense.
VR.
No.
It is,
Yeah.
well, I mean, being on PSVR probably explains
Yeah.
Right.
a lot of that.
My favorite news of the week is Goob Newell. Gabe Newell did a Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and
In his own, subreddit, in the
In the
gaming
Gaben subreddit.
subreddit.
and guess what? Valve is confirmed to be working
Half-Life 3.
on VR titles of their own. So that's great. I mean,
Half-Life 3 VR confirmed.
there you go.
I found this, it was sort of a throwaway comment too. It was just answering a couple questions, and he he reaffirmed his commitment to VR, which is great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then this idea that they are developing in-house VR games is pretty exciting.
They don't talk about in-house development ever. So the fact that we get this nugget, that's great. I mean, it's going to be forever until it's released, and then it'll be a little bit longer, and then it'll come out, but it'll be great.
But they've been messing with VR for a very long time,
Yeah.
right? Like the room scale stuff.
Arguably longer than anybody.
Yeah. And so maybe it's, hey, we came up with some of these concepts years ago, and now the technology is catching up with what we actually wanted to do. Or
And why not wait? I mean, you might as well wait, let the market get bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the penetration for headsets is still very low. So
But he also threw out that the Knuckles controller, which I hadn't heard it referred to that, that's the touch-like device that
You can open and close your
they're,
hand.
Oh,
they're
okay.
prototyping for
Okay.
Steam. Or,
I thought it was like
Steam
Sonic
VR.
and Knuckles. You had bolted into something else.
He said the Knuckles controller is being designed at the same time as we're designing our games.
Oh,
So potentially
Okay.
there'll be some crossover there.
Right.
It kind of alludes to game made for interface, console style.
Right.
Which I'm all for it. That's fantastic.
I've been suspicious of Gabe's other AMAs, but this one he indicated that there were a lot of other people in the room from Valve, and they like jumped in on the AMA too. So I think it lends a little bit more credence to his cryptic AMAs of the past.
Right.
One final thing I noticed that Daydream, which we took a look at and pretty much hated, Google's Daydream, has now dropped all the way down to $50. It's basically,
Was it 100 before?
yeah, it was. I think it was 90,
Okay.
and so it's almost halved in price.
Right.
And it's going to be that price, all the way through the end of February. They said. I have the Pixel, and I tried it inside Daydream. We had so many frame drops and so many issues with the games that we're playing.
Yeah.
You tried it out too, right?
The controller has potential, but
Yeah, I like the marginally tracked controller.
yeah, right, exactly. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm glad that they're doing it. Why
I
not?
mean, it was way more comfortable in the Gear VR for my
Yeah.
money, but just like it's once you have a real headset, it feels like a pale imitation.
Right.
And even though the barrier to entry is so much lower, I can't imagine recommending it with all those frame drops. It's like, can you imagine recommending a video game console that drops every now and again?
Well, and especially with VR being such a new thing, and everything that's released, you run the risk of it being people's first impression,
Right.
and lasting impression of what the technology is capable of. I don't want it to be Gear VR or Daydream. you
Yeah.
know?
Stuff like that. I mean, when you let's
Cardboard.
walk through malls, right? It's like VR, this headset thing you put your phone into. I mean, how many of those sold over the holidays? That's kind of scary, right? These people thinking that's virtual reality.
Right.
And that's not, right?
I do wonder how many of those sold over the holidays.
I saw them everywhere. So, like in the middle of malls and UFO catcher machines in Japan, it just seemed like they were really trying to increase the penetration of this. And
UFO catcher machine?
it's a crane game. Like the crane where
Sure.
it comes and grabs the prizes. Like those were prizes in there, kind of like high end prizes.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
What have you been playing in VR?
I played The Climb. I finally went back and played The Climb with touch.
Climb is great with touch.
It's a very different game, actually.
Yeah.
And surprisingly good, because the world does move so much, but it's one-to-one with your hands. So I'm always interested to find out what causes motion sickness and what doesn't. And so it's got that, it's just like we experienced with Lone Echo at the Oculus event, that you're moving all around the world, and there was no motion sickness. And that also, the movement, while you would let go and you would drift through space, when you initially threw yourself, it's one-to-one. I think one-to-one is key to avoiding motion sickness. Anyway, love To Climb, and my son just loves it. I was really surprised by that. Like, he just played it for a half hour and just was completely immersed, and actually got way beyond where I did on the mountain, and was throwing himself around. And it's a blast. It's actually a really good game.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Do you have any of the units? You have PSVR, you said.
I have all three.
You have all three?
Yeah, and actually, my touch controllers arrived while I was in Japan. So, and I didn't realize they did. It was in a box by my mail. But so I got to use the touch controllers this week. And first thing I loaded up was Super Hot VR, and in the process of playing the game, I punched my monitor.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You kind of you're flailing around and definitely hit that thunk. It was like the very edge of my punch.
Did
but,
it survive?
Guardian
it did.
Yeah.
It did survive. Monitor was okay,
Wow.
but it was one of those moments like, oh wow, okay, wait, I'm nowhere near where I thought I was.
Yeah.
In the room. So
And Guardian came up, and you punched
no,
through
I
it.
had to actually. Guardian was set up incorrectly because I was sort of like get me into the game, and so I sort of cheated a little bit
Yeah.
on the space. But yeah, then I paid for it. But yeah, I'm touch controllers are much better than the Vive controllers in my opinion. Other than the wireless stuff coming out for Vive, I don't know why I would use it over Oculus right now.
There's a lot of people having issues with Oculus tracking right now. I don't know if you guys browse
the
Reddit.
the sensor,
But-
like
Oh,
we need
really?
a sensor mega thread. No,
you saw that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are people like, it's ruining this sub because there's just so much talk about it. And
Oh,
it's
weird.
It's a weird thing where you either got it or you don't. And
Right.
I don't have a problem. Norm doesn't. We don't.
I
we
don't
I
have
haven't had a
problems.
problem.
Yeah.
But some people they've never been able to get it working properly.
Wow.
It stutters, like it jumps 3 feet up and back down within a frame, and it just completely makes you nauseous.
Oh yeah.
What? totally valid concern if
Yeah.
that's what's going on.
So
for you.
I hope they get that issue
The
fixed.
only problems I've had with sensors are me treating the Rift like it has room scale stuff, and then turning around and
Yeah.
losing tracking, that
Right.
kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, that sucks for those. I don't have that issue. So
So I tried doing something different. I went back to Damaged Core, which is not a touch-enabled game, to see if I could still enjoy
right.
a non-touch enabled game, and it's mixed. I really like having the hands is addictive. Having touch is really hard to step away from. It took a while, but you could do it. So I wonder about those slew of games like Damage Core, which was one of my more enjoyable non-touch games of 2016. I felt like I could get into it after a little while. But I feel like there is that set of games, the non-touch enabled games are just going to gather dust.
right. There was one other thing in Japan. They actually have VR parks where you kind of pay admission and you go into these. It's basically a room set up with VR and customized games like zombie shooting and things like that. So those were starting to pop up. And the other thing I saw in stores was these like face condoms, for lack of a better term, for PSVR and Vive.
That's what I was going to ask with the VR parks. Is it gross?
Well, no. So they have like these paper masks that you put on and then they wipe everything down. They have like a full cleaning station next to it. But the stuff the stuff you can buy was just in the store, like next to the PSVR display, or walking through a computer shop. So this is for your home. You can buy these like protective things.
What do you think of the VR park?
It was interesting. I had a really hard problem with one of the games where it required talking and cooperation. And like I said, my Japanese is awful. So I was the worst guy in the room. Somebody was yelling something in Japanese and I couldn't understand him. So I think I went the wrong way.
You get frustrated for yourself and you feel bad for that.
Yeah. It was like everything was, it's like, this experience is interesting, but oh my God, I'm sorry. You all just spent 1,000 yen on this. I'm sorry. So
I'm excited to try VR parks. That sounds like a great utilization. I bet you this summer we'll see a lot of that in amusement parks here in the U.S.
Yeah, and those experiences are more to what we're experiencing at home right now, and I think will be a better introduction to VR than these like phone headsets.
One last little bit of news is the VR Sports Challenge, which I think that came free with every Touch pre-order. All the mini games are now unlocked, so you don't have to unlock them yourself. You go in and play them, and you can now fight in hockey.
Yeah.
Fist fight. It's called Brawl for All. I did that actually at the event. I'm not good at it.
How many people are going to drop their touch controllers because they're getting rid of their gloves? It's like throw their controllers on the ground.
My wife asked that I don't play that hockey game anymore because like I don't pay attention to Guardian when I'm playing it. And I just run into things constantly. I treat it like I'm really playing that game, which is a bad idea in the room that I'm playing in. So, and I think that's a good way to get a hole in a monitor or in my wall.
Hey, you got to wear those wrist straps. Respect the Guardian.
That doesn't help. I can wear a wrist strap and still my fist is going to go into that wall.
Respect the Guardian. Give yourself a conservative Guardian. I actually think if you have the space, putting a mat on the floor that you can feel with your feet is a good way to emphasize
I haven't done that.
those limitations.
Yeah, actually, I have carpet tiles around my desk.
That's the way to do it.
That's my border. So.
I have
You
carpet
still
tiles
hit
too.
your
But
monitor.
I have carpet tiles everywhere.
Well, the carpet tile goes up to the desk, so
You need to rethink your
I do
carpet tile
think about it.
placement.
Testing this week. Hey, what have you guys been testing?
Well, Norm, back on the VR front, I also played Thumper, which is I highly recommend it. It's a $20 game on Oculus Home, and it's a kind of a rhythm action game. It's kind of a racing game. But it's very ethereal. I mean, it's very like otherworldly. You're this space beetle, and you're sliding down this slide at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And you have to turn and hit the buttons at just the right time when you cross over these pads or when you hit the turns. And you have to like jump in the air and then smash down on things. And the music isn't, like Green Day. It's like this really dark,
Dark.
Well, yeah, so
drum and bass. It's
I think Alex Navarro described the music soundtrack as Cardassian industrial metal.
yes,
So
That's good.
it is, like, think that.
And I play this game and I just kind of lose myself. You know, it's kind of it's like you're constantly rushing forward, so it's got that kind of zone out thing going for it anyway. But it's in VR. It's not first person. Like you're behind the beetle, and it's worth playing. It's worth checking out.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, Thumper is awesome.
It sounds a little like horror-esque, though. Does it bother you afterwards?
Oh, yeah, it's like you're just boom. It's like it's definitely like you're into it. Like if you do badly, and then, like when you get to the boss, it's like this floating gigantic like low poly snake and all these light things coming around. It's very hypnotic. It's weird. I don't know. I like it.
Oh. All right, I'll check out Thumper. $20 on Oculus. Steve, anything you've been testing?
Well, I'm getting to know my touch controllers because those came in. And then over my trip, I had brought my RX100 Mark III, the Sony camera, and I realized after about a week I left it in my bag, and I just used my iPhone 7.
Oh, wow. Do you have the Plus with the portrait mode?
No, I don't. I just have the regular 7, but it was one of those things, a combination of convenience and just everything else. I realized I don't need this, the point and shoot. So I just put it away, and my entire trip was all on my phone, which I thought was surprising. I was like, I want to get high quality images. I'm going to set up these shots, and then I realized that I could do the same or very similar things with my phone. So, yeah.
I just got back from India not too long ago, and I had the opposite experience where I really wanted to have the camera. So. And I don't know. I think it's like depending on the situation a lot.
Yeah.
But I definitely am out. Like I'm not interested in the large DSLRs
Oh
anymore.
yeah. I can't imagine carrying one of those on my.
No, the pocketable mirrorless cameras still have a use case for me.
Interesting, because I think that's what's going away.
You think so?
I think the point and shoots is what's been replaced by the phone. Now, if you really want to get better than the phone, you've got to go full frame detachable lens.
Well, yeah, but they have a lot of mirrorless cameras that are pocketable that do that.
Oh, so I mean, okay, if you're going,
that's what I'm
fine.
talking about.
Okay,
but like,
but they're still bulky. They're not pocketable.
They're closer. I mean, they're not like the Canon Mark IV, which is like carrying an extra person with you.
Okay, fair enough.
And Steve, you also brought back treats from Japan.
I brought back
which
treats.
We're going to test.
Yes, we're going to test. So these are maple bun Kit Kats.
What? Those are different shape too.
It's like it's not broken all the way through the middle.
What?
So in Hiroshima and Miyajima, they have a maple bun. Like every region of Japan has their own kind of food item that you're supposed to get, and so theirs is this maple bun. So that's the exclusive flavor they had. I also saw there's takoyaki, which is like a fried octopus ball.
No, thank you.
They had takoyaki Pringles at the Osaka store. So
have you made the Pringles Pringles
ringle?
Ringle?
The ring. I have not made the ring.
I gotta make the Pringles Ringle.
No. Let's see. And then we have Crystal Salty Pocky.
You are a fan of Pocky.
I am a fan of Pocky, yes. And then Tokyo Bananas, which are basically like kind of like banana Twinkies.
I've had those.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you bring those back?
I brought them the last time.
Okay.
They're kind of like the standard, like in the airport you buy those and bring them out.
Oh,
so,
got it.
Yeah.
I've been sworn off Pocky since I had the chocolate banana flavored Pocky.
And
it's the fake banana flavor that always does it in.
Yeah. It's like that Nerds fake banana
exactly.
flavor. Yeah. So anyway, brought some treats and obviously a couple other things from Tom Sachs exhibit in Tokyo.
Yeah, the Tom Sachs exhibit just closed here in San Francisco, and he had a concurrent one in Tokyo.
Yeah,
apparently.
so it wasn't a mission in Tokyo. It was just some of the work that he has done, along with a lot of other artists, and like science fiction magazines from like 1920, which was shocking. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do we know what's coming up on Tested this week? I think you're right along.
The Bolt.
The Bolt ride along's coming up.
Yeah, that's what I know about. We have me and Sean have a new show that may or may not debut on Tested Premium soon.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not be working on episode 2 with you.
Yeah, that's right.
On that. I know Simone's trip to the Megabots, I think, went up either today or yesterday when you're listening to this, which is a great watching a giant Metalbot inspired by her chopping robot
Wow.
take shape.
Yeah, that was huge.
Norm will be back next week as long as like Disney deems it so.
Yeah, we
Like-
got to talk about that. He gets back Wednesday, so we'll talk about that.
Norm will not be back next week. So you have to put up with us messing up a recording. Sorry for the fault in the middle. The fault was all mine. But thank you for joining us again. We will see you next week. Thank you so much to our guest, Steve Lin, this week.
Thank you for having me. It was
Again,
great.
where can they find you on Twitter?
Stephen P. Lin on Twitter
Very good.
and stevelin.com.
And of course, our co-host, as always, Jeremy.
Thanks, Kishore. You did a great job hosting today.
I did a job of hosting. You can follow me at Science Quiche and Jeremy at Jerware. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Do we have an outro?
By Sir Science.
Sir Science. I'm into this.
As long as the internet's into this. And cue.
Sir
Outro.
Science.
Come on, Sir
Try a
Science.
little refresh. Now let's switch to the outro.
Hi there, I didn't see you. And I will eat a hard-boiled egg.
That's it. Hard-boiled egg.
I hate eating hard-boiled eggs.
That's how I feel about octopus balls.